All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about cloud development trends in 2026, specifically the shift from cloud native to AI first engineering. And we're going to be doing so with our panelists and with you all as part of that conversation. And before we get started, just a little housekeeping. We have the audience muted for the duration of the session. That said, we'll be running audience Q&A and a few polls along the way. So we'd really love your perspectives and your questions. We're going to be recording the session, so it'll be available within the next 3 business days for you all. And just a quick thank you to Buyers Dev for hosting today's webinar and a little bit about them. They are a global technology services company that helps organizations build and scale engineering teams. They work with everyone from startups to Fortune 500 companies in a wide range of industries, focusing on software, AI, data, and platform engineering. The model is centered around hiring the top 1% of talent across Latin America, which has a strong time zone alignment and leads to really effective collaboration with the teams they support. I'm really excited to introduce the panel we have with us today. First, a little bit about me. I'm Chris Haire. I'll be your moderator. I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer for VSCO, the platform where photographers turn pro. And I've spent a decade in CTO roles, including Zwift, helping it grow to a global connected fitness platform for cyclists. And earlier in my career, I led technology teams at companies like Electronic Arts, Zynga, and Riot Games. And joining me today, I have Jason, Ravi, and Saurabh. Jason's the area tech lead at Google, helping enable this shift through AI platform innovation. Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, nice to talk with you today, Chris, and with everyone out there. My name is Jason. I spend a lot of my time working on generative AI and what that means for software engineers, and then how we navigate kind of the impending fifth era of information and activation with it. So super excited to be here talking about the very relevant things with cloud and AI today.
Great. Ravi, Ravi's advising enterprises on how you actually make AI-driven transformation real. So Ravi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here. I'm Ravi Bellur. I am the founder of Precession Partners, where I work with leadership teams at mid-market and P-backed companies who are trying to go through their AI transformation journey. I fundamentally focus on the operational side and operating model aspects of AI native workflows. I hold a patent in AI-based systems classification, and I've deployed these type of systems at scale. In my previous journey, I used to be a CTO of 2 major enterprise level organizations, and I look forward to this, I think what promised to be a very exciting conversation.
Great to have you here, Ravi. Saurabh, he's the CTO at Credit One Bank, and he's leading that transformation firsthand in banking and payments. So brings kind of that regulated transformation experience to the conversation today. Saurabh, tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Saurabh Gupta, and I'm the CTO for Credit One. I spent the last 2 decades building really large-scale regulated systems. These are mission-critical systems serving billions of dollars across geographies and also in healthcare, right? So I will bring in my experience as to how large institutions think about adopting AI and cloud with the regulation and privacy and security in mind.
Great. Well, great to have you all with us today. Really excited to get into some questions and everything. So moving into a bit of an intro about the conversation today. Over the past decade, cloud native architectures have completely transformed how we build and scale applications. And we're seeing that much bigger shift now, especially across the Google Cloud Platform ecosystem. As data platforms, AI capabilities, and infrastructure continue to converge, AI is just no longer something you layer on top. It's becoming embedded directly into how applications are built and how businesses operate. So this session will really be trying to move beyond theory and focusing on how leading organizations are actually operationalizing this and getting to measurable outcomes. And the reason this matters is simple. We're all seeing this impact: faster time to market, improved developer productivity, better customer experiences, and more efficient operations. So today we'll focus on what it actually takes to move forward, AI first engineering practice, and how teams are doing it at scale. So to kick us off, where are you actually seeing AI move the needle in production, not just in pilots? And before we jump in, I believe we have a poll here that we'll go through to get a quick sense where everybody is in their AI journey. So yeah, you'll see the polls popped up on the screen now. So if you just take a moment to answer it and give us your perspective, and there's no right or wrong answer. We're all in different places in this journey, and very few of us are AI first or AI native, as people like to say. All right. Let's get to the results here. So everybody's at quite different places, and nobody says, hey, we're an AI first organization today. So I think that rings true for a lot of us. We started our businesses well before AI was a thing, and now we're all playing catch up and integrating into how we work today. Well, let's bring in the panel. So Jason, maybe starting with you. From your vantage point at Google, you see a broad swath of things, I'm sure, and I'm curious to see how those platforms and tools are reshaping how you build software today. So what's materially different today compared to even 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great starting question, Chris. If you think of, I think of kind of the roles that we've all been, experiencing and playing over the past 10 years, really with kind of cloud native development from 2025 or 2015 to today. I think the first thing to acknowledge, right, is that it feels like we, in some sense, took all the responsibilities of all these roles like a box of crayons and we threw them all on the floor. So we said, okay, great. We have all these, we got the 96 pack of crayons. Okay, well, what does this actually mean for the jobs, right? So as a PM or a product manager, maybe you were doing requirements before, but you're working with UX to actually build, prototypes for the front end, and then front end engineers to actually, build the product. Well, you could vibe a front end today, right? Like you could go to a product like AI Studio and in 15 minutes, like probably have something that's working. So, I think first thing that I see, right, is that the package of roles is really changing. So, we're moving, more into what I kind of call like full stack PMs, full stack, software engineering is really becoming kind of that reality, from back end to front end to databases. But I think that, while we're moving up the stack, we're also kind of narrowing focus, right? Like, how are we really nailing use cases? Because ultimately the use case is what brings business value to an application that we build. And so I think like that's really where I see where we're at, is like, what's the next repackaging of roles for this? Personally, I use a lot of like Notebook LM. I think the research side of AI right now is probably one of the most stable. But just how am I sifting through so much information at a time? Like, there's a lot of great tools out there, even from companies like Anthropic that make that part easy and figuring out, how do I just make something better out of the gate? And so, over the next 24 months, if you kind of use the analogy of moving from reads to writes, like I think we're just on the precipice of what write actually looks like. OpenClaw, I think, got a lot of interest from folks, but we got to move into that next phase, which is, okay, well, how are we writing on, small application stacks and, million line code stacks to now like 10 million plus stacks. And I think we're still very early in that journey across the board.
Yeah, interesting. So Saurabh, let me come to you next. Like, you're working in highly regulated environments where AI isn't just about capability, it's also about risk, compliance, and real world decisioning. So what does AI first actually look like in that context? And what's harder than typical enterprise?
Yeah, so I'll begin with a little bit of background, right? A couple of years back, for the first time, regulatory bodies like OCC and all started having, direct interest in AI, and it was part of their questionnaires and audit, right? So companies or large banks today are trying to adopt a posture, which is an audit first posture, an explainable AI, auditability, complete auditability, making it more deterministic, and also compliant in a sense with other regulatory guidelines. So policy as code is coming out to be a big pivot for us. And for everyone else in the banking industry, they're codifying their policies for AI to ingest and really apply in real time, right? audit ready by design. Every single item to be fully observable, loggable is the key here. Humans in the loop when your decision matrix ends up in a confusion zone. Those are the key things that we are looking at. I mean, the regulation is evolving, but the frameworks are evolving as well. I'll give an example. Like FinOS is a body that really looks at all of these independent frameworks and then creates a very streamlined framework for banks to adopt. And it has done some great work on that, and many banks are adopting that as well. So, like I said, right, this is the bleeding edge right now. A few cuts are expected, but regulated sector is approaching with basically optimistic, cautious approach, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. It's very fascinating to me to think about. You've got accuracy that really matters in these environments, and you're working with systems that are problematic with AI. So, like, how do you rectify that so you can get that accuracy you need, but still leverage AI?
Yeah, so not too different than what traditional model governance has been, right? With probabilistic model and self-correcting models, drift is something that you should expect. But the policies around model governance, fairness, understanding biases of models still remains the same. So the controls around those are right now there in most of the organizations, and those are being adopted, I would say, for AI journeys. The only thing is that no banking system, no healthcare provider would ever let an AI learn in real time. So they're probably going to seal off the drift and then take out all the inputs that they learn and then basically put it through rigorous testing before they apply it back into production.
Well, Ravi, I'd love to bring you in here as well and get your perspectives. You spend a lot of time thinking about how architectures are evolving from cloud native to what we might call AI native, where systems are designed for intelligence, not just scale. So what actually needs to be rethought and redesigned to make that shift? And what can teams realistically build on top of what they already have?
Yep. Chris, great question. Thank you. So if you look at, I think Jason referenced this as well. If you look at cloud native, the problem that cloud native was seeking to solve was really a compute and scalability problem, right? We basically had an initiative where business asked for more performance and cloud was a solution for it. But with AI native, and then we are really trying to solve a completely different set of problem, which is those systems that we scaled using cloud, how can we get those systems to learn, to act and decide pretty much autonomously? So when we talk about AI native, I think the key questions that emerge for all of us is, or for organizations would be, where does intelligence reside in an ecosystem, right? How much of it is automated today and how much that organizations seek to automate in the future. And I think Saurabh referenced a couple of scenarios there. And then really, what role will human beings play in an AI native architecture in the future, right? As us as human beings, we have played the role of, making decisions in a workflow, right? And handing it off to the next person in the sequence. I think there's a claim being made that in an AI native scenario, the roles are going to reverse and that we are going to have AI make a lot of these decisions and then human beings, move to become adjudicators of those decisions. So how organizations navigate this operating model change at scale is going to be the key challenge over the next 3 to 5 years.
No, indeed. The shift is happening, and we have to be ready for it and see it, and it keeps changing all the time. What we did in 2025 with AI is different than what we're even doing in 2026 with AI. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about that in practice. And there's a big difference between starting to experiment with AI to actually trying to move it into production and scale it across the organization. So let's focus on that a bit. And Jason, I'd love to, start with you. You talked about how roles are changing and everything. You see a lot of things around Kubernetes, data platforms, and AI coming together to reshape how we're doing development as well. So maybe you could ground that in some real examples on, what does the development lifecycle look like now from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things, and Ravi, I think articulated this pretty well. If you think of the role of human in the loop, like my background is actually process engineering, not software engineering. If you think of development as an activity of 10 tasks, where I've seen organizations start and kind of sputter as we say, well, hey, how can we automate task 3 of the 10? And like, well, in reality, if we think about really the value that non-determinism does bring to some of these processes, if you mapped it all out, what I may say with AI is like, well, actually, I just want to move from 1 to 9, and I want to add A after 9 and then go to 10. And so, one of the things as folks get started with this stuff is I think you have to just try it and use it in some workflows and like, kind of like just use AI for the whole thing and see what works and what doesn't. Because if we try to sub-optimize for parts, in reality, we're probably not actually getting the full value of what non-determinism or LLMs can bring to a situation. So that's usually my starting point in these things is like go use it for as much as possible and see how far you can get, quite frankly, because in the last 3 months, the model improvements that I've seen across the board, tools like Codex from OpenAI, the improvements with Anthropic and Gemini, like it's wild, like what the last 3 to 6 months of innovation have been. But what that requires is like continually rethinking the process that we use. So that's probably the one place I'd start. The other thing I'd say in terms of how this is bringing the data pipeline and things like Kubernetes in, LLMs are stateless entities. But what I think we've realized it's like agents are only as good as the long-running systems that actually support them. And unlike applications, right, where applications, we may have like a stateful database that, knows Jason logged in 10 minutes ago, it's going to kick him out because his auth token expired and that sort of stuff. Like, actually, the more that we know about what Jason has done, like over years with our platform or maybe our banking, system, like we can materially improve his experience with AI if we have that information. But have we actually been leveraging like telemetry logs? Yeah, like we are very early in this journey of like true unstructured data analysis and action off of that. And like it's super exciting. The last mile of data engineering has always been the hardest, right? Which is like I had a dashboard, but how do you translate the dashboard into getting someone to take action? Like this is where most projects, what was the acceptance rate? Like 20 to 25% of like big data projects actually work. And this is like 2020. I don't know that number is like actually changed that much. If we solve that with AI, though, like that's where the value is actually created. And I think we're very close to that. But we have to think about systems engineering all over again for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really poignant. Like, probably the same amount of success rate is happening today with AI products because of similar challenges.
Yeah.
AI works really well with data, but you still have to figure out how to operationalize it and how to provide the right level of context so that you get the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, and don't forget, now when we're talking logs, right? Like we had structured data and then we added images and stuff and that 10x it. Now you're talking like logs and all this. So like we're probably 10 to 25xing the data, which we will only be successful for using AI to do the work. But now we got to make systems of systems, and like we got to shift into that mentality of building the platform for this stuff, not just leveraging one little box like in the broader architecture.
Fair point. Yeah.
I want to add something, Jason. Really, I mean, very, very crucial points, right? Like if you go to large banks or even larger healthcare industry, there are silos. AI, and that's because of organizational structure, control structure. But that's an impediment to adoption. The broader the AI is, the better outcome it is, right? So, and also, the broadly you apply AI, the better the outcome is. That's like telephones, the more people have, right? The second piece Jason was describing was around data. I think the value of metadata and lineage will now be very, very crucial in driving things in 5 years' time from an AI perspective. Today, you don't describe data well because it's all left to humans. You don't bring in context of the data, and that's what is going to be crucial. So you will see basically a surge, at least on the data collection side, where data and context both are being pushed together to AI. for faster optimal decisions.
Well, Ravi, I'd love to get your perspective as well. Like when companies try to make the shift from experimentation to production to scale, like where do you see things break down the most?
No, thank you, Chris. I think, again, a very pertinent question. So I think what Jason and Saurabh described are some of the operational challenges, in making AI successful. I think there are, it looks like there are three major areas that often jump up, at least is what I am seeing. One clearly is what both of them reference, which is the data gap, right? There's a significant difference in reality between what people think their data is and the level of quality and governance that data, especially in healthcare, like Saurabh said, that is required to make AI models successful. The second challenge I think we often see, and I have personally experienced as well, is an architecture challenge. And by architecture, I'm talking about enterprise architecture. Most AI initiatives, and I think, Chris, I refer back to your earlier question, what's different from 3-4 years back now? Most organizations still continue to see AI initiatives as being a technology initiative. It's like a IT focused initiative. Whereas really, if you peel behind the covers, AI needs to be really looked at as a transformational strategic initiative. Because what we are seeking to do with AI is add it on top of an existing process or a workflow that is designed for status quo, right? Existing workflows are not designed to be innovative. They're more designed to maintain and scale the existing status quo. So when you try to fit AI on top of an existing process like that, you are really exposing an operational challenge. You're exposing a change management challenge. So the second key gap is that change management is a huge problem that I think most companies have not yet figured out. And that is what you saw in 2025, right? When the ROI became a big problem with AI because you're trying to retrofit a brand new innovation, a strategic innovation on a standard existing methodology and model. So long story short, I would say the critical difference is for organizations to look at, in order to make AI work, is to look at their operating model, look at how people reside in hierarchies, what roles they have, who is ultimately accountable for AI. So this is not a technology challenge. It is more of an operational and strategic challenge that really begins with the leadership team.
Yeah, how ironic. Yeah, we talk about AI and everything in the machines, but like at the core of it, it's about humans interacting with AI, and people are at the core of the challenge for scaling this out in organizations. I feel it every day too. So it resonates with me. So let's look ahead a little bit, and we're starting to see that gap emerge from those organizations that have been able to operationalize AI, and those that are maybe experimenting or struggling bringing AI practices into their workflows. So I'd love to get your perspectives on what separates the leaders from the laggards in that shift to AI first. So Jason, starting with you, what do you think is about to become standard over the next couple of years, and what's going to feel pretty outdated pretty quickly here?
Oh, outdated. If you asked me that question 12 months ago, I probably would have even had a different answer than I do now. I think outdated in this context, to me, really represents like having the willingness to throw things away, in particular in the development lifecycle, very quickly. We've done a lot of internal, stuff, obviously at Google, and I think the thing that is starting to stick is like it's the learning that you get from using these things, but the actual implementation, if you threw it all out, 6 months later for something else because the LLM model improves, like the durability is really, I think, in the learning, and then to Ravi's point, like what is the business value or the business problem that we're solving versus being identifying ourselves like based on the software that we're writing or the application feature that we're launching. So I think there's the philosophical shift there, which I do think that's going to be a durable learning. A lot of these agent architecture things, like I find personally very interesting. OpenClaw in particular, right? I think unlocked this like idea that anyone could use AI systems, and it's super exciting to watch. It's also terrifying from a risk and security and compliance perspective, right? Because like it'll do anything on these things. And so I think there's some level of like, what is realistic, AI security and what does that look like? And then what does that enable and what does that inhibit that we need to start driving to some consensus to as systems to really make it happen. So those are the things that I see, as really probably changing in the immediate future. At this point, I don't posit to say like what's going to be out of date in 6 months, and more probably think about like I think multi-agent systems will be real, like much more real. Even there's some experimental stuff, in Claude Code that is out relatively recently, and I'm like, I think this might be the time where these things start to really, take flight. So I'm more looking at like how do those change what I'm doing versus what do I think is going to be obsolete, because obsolescence will kind of drive it itself, and based on just replacement in there. So those are probably the things I think about the most.
Yeah, it's just the one of your earlier points there about like the willingness to throw things out and do things differently is fascinating to me because, and for many years in software development, it was like throwing things out and rewriting things was kind of felt like fool's gold and a trap. And now it's actually starting to feel very reasonable given how fast you can try things out using AI and use it to leverage rewriting things from scratch again.
Yeah, it's test-driven development was incredibly difficult. Like I was leading a project in 2017 where we were using TDD, and just as like humans trying to do that work 100%, like it is almost an impossible feat without like really reducing team velocity. But like I use TDD with most of my agent development because I'm like, well, hey, like if you can tell me that if you can build me the test and we agree on the test and the code can pass the test, like the test is the representation of like what my logic is that I need you to do, and whether you rewrite the application 500 times behind that, as long as the test is like still true to my business and like my IT logic, like that's really what I care about going forward. It's to say like, hey, is it consistently using data in the same way? Like it's more to me about the observability now than it is about the actual code. But it was never really about the code. We just spent so much time trying to get something to work that we kind of lost like the edges of code and integration and business planning.
Very true. Yeah. Saurabh, from your perspective, what are the biggest risks and blockers you're seeing right now? What could actually slow adoption down the most in your industries?
So risk and blockers. So let's talk about risk. Big regulatory risk. And the reason I say so is you look at what's going on in most companies today. Just because they want to control data and they're looking at privacy, they are all adopting open source, open weight, open API models from Quen or GLM, and that's been big fuel for the AI to get into all of these enterprises. What if one day US decides, hey, no more, right? So that is a big risk. The other risk is really operations, like Jason said. But in my mind, there is ROI. There's significant ROI for a broad space application of AI. But we have to be cognizant that anything that we are building today or in the next 3 years will probably be technical debt, because frameworks will evolve. Model intelligence will probably reduce the need for a lot of functions on AI harness, memory management, and things like that. Right? There might be domain-specific models that get trained and launched. So that's one area of spending and ROI that we have to factor in, the deprecation. And then another one very important, which often gets overlooked, but is important, is really IP management. Most people are worried about, hey, will my data leak? Will my proprietary knowledge leak? But what you should be more worried about is, where has AI learned from? Are you infringing on someone else's IP? That is often overlooked, but it's very important from a regulatory perspective. And even if you don't want to get into a whole host of lawsuits, right? Those are key risks. I mean, there are other risks that we have spoken about: organization silos, legacy technology stacks, right? Data not being described, not being trusted, right? Those are standard risks across most of the organizations today.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the where the data that the model trains on is like so much of a hot topic for photographers and in the world. So that resonates with me, even though it's not, banking or health based. Ravi, love your take on this as well, like from an organizational side of things. What needs to change organizationally for all this to work, and what are you seeing in companies that are getting ahead?
Yeah, I think Jason and Saurabh spoke of some of the key risks already, right? The structural risks that exist. Chris, based on my interactions with various organization and leadership teams, the key risk to me is financial risk. And give me a couple of minutes to explain what that is. A lot of the AI work today is on the engineering aspects of AI, right? Legitimately so. It's the accuracy of the models, it's the token cost, it's the scalability, and so on. And then you add on the other associated components regarding data, architecture, compliance. But the challenge that we have is, and when I work with companies, is that, and I often have to act as a translator, is that most CEOs and CFOs, the only language that they prefer to talk in is margin expansion. So when we talk about AI projects and initiatives, right, they only look at four major levers on a financial statement from an EBITDA standpoint. Then they look at revenue growth, they look at gross margin, they look at cost reduction, or capital preservation and expansion. So ultimately, the risk is if organizations launching AI initiatives, if they're not able to tie a direct line into any of those four major segments, either on the income statement or on your cash flow statement or on your balance sheet, you are going to run the risk of another AI hype coming to logical budgetary close at some point. So looking at your AI initiatives, prioritizing them, and linking them directly to KPIs that map on an income statement to various EBITDA levers, to me, is a foundational thing, regardless of whether it's AI enabled workflow or AI native workflow. Having that measurement of success that you can scale, is a key attribute for AI success. And I see that as the biggest risk, unless leaders like us are able to translate that into financial language that a CFO can understand. I think it becomes a risk.
So Ravi, I mean, to add to that, right? Here is really what is going on, at least in large enterprises. People are looking at it as a sort of productivity enhancer. It is really a multiplier. But all of that still leads to bottom line reduction. Where AI has not been really successful is really in top line.
Right.
Like producing real impacts in top line is where the value will get generated. And that's where I think the biggest bottleneck is in large scale adoption. Unless you do something about that, and unless you are able to ship features that people want to buy, it's going to be difficult.
That's right. 100%. I think it has to make sense on the income statement, to your point, Saurabh.
Totally. It's always about creating leverage, isn't it? Like whatever time or money we're investing in something, it has to create leverage for the world, for the business, for our customers. Otherwise, it could lead to a dead end for the business. So,
right.
So yeah, if you all had a single piece of advice for CTOs or CEOs to invest and prioritize in 2026, platform, data, AI, which would it be and why? Jason, let's start with you.
It's a hard one to boil down to one. I would invest in essentially like how can you run durable external AI experiments. I recognize that's like a feature system, right? Not a single thing for it. To Ravi's point, if you think about the income statement, and what some companies are starting to do with personalization in AI, even light AI, there's real dollars behind this stuff if you can delight customers and solve customer problems. And if you think of the pull through in that, efficiency will always be there. We could go after efficiency till the cows come home, and there will still be more things to make more efficient, but there's only so many opportunities where the pie is actually expanding for everyone. And so like, why not go after that? So I think being able to durably run AI experiments, like real-time evaluation of customer flows, being able to inject different prompts and responses, like I think that's actually the most immediate thing I'd probably be focusing on if I was building, because that implies that we now have a system of AI and learning that we can really leverage to move forward. And I don't think it's not that hard to build. It is hard to say, okay, like what are the outcomes that we're going to drive, and then how do we just get that V1 to V2 to V3 like mentality, and almost like, I forget where the DevOps books, like the Phoenix project and all that, like it's almost like that for AI, but like doing that at the business level for it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It ties right back into what we were talking about outcomes and like truly creating leverage. And if you experiment and you can measure, then you can see what is driving that leverage and what isn't.
Yeah, well, you don't know, right? Like for some of these things, like we think we can do it, but like sometimes like you can run market analysis, like, and we could do it for months, even using deep research and get even deeper with market analysis. But until you start launching, right, and seeing being reasonable about the downside risk, like, and minimizing that part, like you don't know what the upside is until you do it. And that's where we're kind of at, right? Like, let's all experiment and figure it out and grow together.
Absolutely. So Saurabh, like, what's your take? What's the one area that you would prioritize?
I'm going to not choose any of your options that you offered, right? I think the most tangible investment that you can make in AI is really in your people today. You should give them confidence that they will be there. You should bring them, train them on human on the loop philosophy, not in the loop philosophy, right? Train them and give them, the courage, because what is there is a lot of people associate themselves with a job and there is pride in authorship, right? And AI basically shatters that. So you have to re-engage your workforce to work alongside AI, right? And that is a durable investment that you'll make. And if I were to be forced, right, to make one of the three choices that you gave, I would say take a platform approach, right? Every institution is unique. You have your own organization boundaries, your own interpretation of legislation. Choose a platform. Don't go for point solutions. There are 34,000 startups in AI right now. I checked recently, right? I think 1% will last, most will die, some will get bought out. So don't worry about too much of picking the right solution, but building the skills is really the way to go. And build the organization muscle as well, right? Corporate and organizational change is not an easy change to make, right? And unless you're fundamentally different in the way you approach problems, AI will just turn out to be another tool.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a lot of our people that we work with are going through a bit of an existential crisis. So like, is AI going to replace me? And I think I don't see that replacement happening anytime soon personally. And that's the confidence that I try to give to my team is we're all in this together, and we're like, AI is just an enablement for our job, and it will be for the foreseeable future.
I don't know how many of you really go for recruitment drives, and then I've been, engaged at grassroots level in some of the recruitment drives, and I've seen students changing their majors now. They are betting on the future where there is, going to be the minimal impact of AI, and they're switching majors. Like hospitality has seen an increase. Computer science has seen, dramatic downturn. So people are really worried, and then AI is for people. So we got to make it a people centric effort.
Right on. So Ravi, I'd love to get your thoughts as well.
I think this subject alone probably will take us 2-3 hours. We can debate it, right? It's such a fascinating space. I totally agree with what Saurabh and Chris you are talking about, but I do have a different perspective here, which doesn't disagree with what you're saying, but a different take, if you will. Let me take an example from outside of this conversation, right? Back 10, 15 years back, I think there was a debate like this in the EV world, right? There was a debate between Toyota and what Elon Musk did with Tesla. Toyota came up with Prius. We all know that, right? It was a hybrid. It's a hybrid model wherein you can do both. And Musk said, no, that hybrid model sets us back years, and they went for a pure EV model, which is where we are today. I see a similar challenge emerging in the AI world, right? So the AI world challenge is, do you do AI enablement with people or do you go AI native fully? Now, you're right, Chris, that we are still 3 to 5 years away from a pure agentic AI native workflow taking full hold across various functions. But we are starting to see offshoots of that already. So in an AI-enabled world, what you're doing is you're retaining your existing capability, talent, and you're slapping an AI layer on top of it. And then, humans still make all the decisions. But all you're doing with AI at that point is adding some, you're getting AI to act as a co. But an AI native architecture, like we discussed earlier, the idea is you really switch out and understand what decisions can be made autonomously in an organization. And there, humans and people really act as adjudicator of those decisions. Two radically different concepts, Prius versus Tesla, right? Go native or go hybrid. And so depending on the choice you make, it has profound implications. So my advice or counsel to CDO, CIOs, or any leaders is more than the technology, more than that debate, it's the right time to take a relook at your operating model. Look at how work is performed in your company, how that has to evolve over the next 24, 36, 48 months. What roles humans will play, what roles AI agents will play autonomously. Like Jason said, AI is going to evolve, right? It's going to mature more and more over the next few years. So a lot more capability will come into play. But doing this operating model change is a very disruptive task, like Saurabh was talking about. So take the time right now and focus on relooking at how work is done in an organization. And that will lead to the right answers for you and your organizations when the AI capability is going to lift you up in the future.
Yeah, and Ravi, to add to you, right? I think things that will change. Build versus buy will no longer be something that people will worry about. Most people,
Right.
I
agree.
The other thing is, your operational bottom line will basically flatten itself out. So you will be focusing your workforce, right, on features and product releases. So your human potential will be fully deployed towards top line. But the way of the workforce is the pyramid is inverted today. There are more workers than thought leaders. I think you have to invert the pyramid by augmenting AI, right? And that's where the cultural shift is. That's where the money should go in.
Right. And you're right, because see, you can now set up a complete AI stack on a high-performing Mac Mini, right? So AI is going to get commoditized. So
Absolutely.
This will not be a technology challenge anymore. I mean, what Vertex AI is doing with what Jason and team are doing, right? That's a complete stack you have at your tooltip. Yeah. So to your point, focusing on how you relook at your operating model will be a key requirement for the future.
Right on. Well, we're almost out of time, and we want to save a little bit of time for our audience Q&A and a couple of final polls here. And first up, there was one question that came in for you, Jason, on what TTD is. I think you said TDD, and if you can
I probably misspoke. Yeah. Test-driven development, it's the act of, there's also BDD, which is like that was like a bridge too far, even further back. But it's the act of just, writing the tests that fail and then writing the code to eventually pass the test for it.
Yeah, right on. I mean, it's so amazing how AI can help you power doing that and, be that confirmation if you go through that approach of like completely rewriting something that what you rewrote works really well, right? So
we all have 100% test coverage today, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's amazing how like our test coverage is kind of like ramped up with AI usage, as well as our test planning and the quality of that too, because you can kind of take like a white box, sort of approach to like looking at the code and driving the test plan, edge case testing and everything. So
the funny thing is, test coverages have been 90% and up for a decade for most organizations, but the meaningful test coverage is now increasing because I've seen developers write like really, really poor test cases just to get the coverage up.
Well, let's be honest, like, integration tests are hard, right? And so those are the ones that we never wrote. We wrote unit tests like all the time because those were easy. It's like, like I can validate this function, but like, does the 10 functions yield what you want? You're like, that's hard.
Absolutely. And most people will write unit test coverages for their build breaks to not happen. Like the moment you hit that threshold, push it away.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. Well, we have a couple polls to finish things out. We've been talking a lot about the Google Cloud ecosystem. So, first, curious who's going to Google Cloud next? How about you guys? Like, who's going here on the call today?
I work at Google, obviously, and Next is one of my big events, so I will be there working.
Right on. Let's see
I'm
what the
there
audience.
too. So I'm getting to be a part of Leader Circle this year with Thomas Kurian and company. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Just a few more seconds for the audience, and then we'll see who in our audience is going to Google next. Hope to see a lot of y'all there. Only one person. Okay. Well, maybe after this call, you'll be interested in going and learning about like all the new AI offerings from Google there. It's a great conference. I learn so much every time. Learn all sorts of different practices across, infrastructure, platform, security, and everything. And had great talks with Anthropic and learning from their team too there. So yeah, lots of great sessions. So
First, if one can add, not about the Las Vegas visit, but what you just said, right? What Google did with their AI offering now, Vertex, it's worth for everyone in this audience to go and take a look at it. I think the consolidation of various different moving parts of an AI stack into one, it really simplifies you as a consumer. So if there's an opportunity to learn more about it at Las Vegas, it's worth a visit.
Yeah, I'm excited for Google ADK. It's a good step forward for a good agentic framework. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that as well.
Right on. Well, I think we have one more final poll. So yeah, let's see. So what's the best way to describe your organization's AI strategy over the next 6 to 12 months? It's an interesting one. I'm really curious to see what the audience thinks. For us at VSCO, we're continuing to just try to find use the latest tools and keep playing around with them and experimenting. Multi-agentic flows have really blossomed in the last few months. And some of our top developers are daily driving them and doing cloud agents and all sorts of stuff. And we're delivering new products that are AI based, and we're trying to scale that out through the organization. So it's not just a few people doing it, but everybody doing it. Been interesting to see for us. We've had our AI code, our co-developed code percentage go from 30 to 40% at the end of 2025 to 95% now. So I'm sure we're all going through different transitions like this. So let's see what the audience says. Cool. Well, we're pretty close to time, but is there any last Q&A from the audience? If you do, please drop it into chat. If not, really appreciate the conversation today. Really thank our panelists for bringing their perspectives and what they're seeing and giving us not just theoretical, but real world examples of what you're seeing in your jobs on the ground. Just a reminder, this presentation will be shared with everybody in the next few business days. And thanks for coming again. See you in future sessions.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.